right. I was inspired by the Colin Simmons commitment to look at the defensive side of the ball for Texas. And I was thinking about big-time playmakers. And, how do you quantify, a playmaking ability? Well, one of the stats that tries to do that is the Havoc rate. Havoc plays. Essentially, these are big plays by the defense. Forced fumbles, interceptions, PBUs, tackles for loss, or sacks.
Havoc rate.
Yes, they're called Havoc plays on defense.
That. I think my man Colonel Craig Flowers in his horse racing stable should have a horse named Havoc Rate.
That is a good one. I like that.
Good horse racing. Havoc Rate.
That sounds awesome. So and then you can, and based on those Havoc stats, you can then compute a Havoc rate for the entire team. And last season, in 2021, Texas was 8th in Havoc rate in 2021. 8th in the Big 12. 8th in the Big 12 in Havoc rate in 2021. And when you looked at the top 33 players in the Big 12 for Havoc plays, the ones I just brought up, forced fumbles, interceptions, PBUs, tackles for loss, or sacks, Texas didn't have one player, 0 players in the top 33 in the Big 12 in 2021. That's how lackluster they were on defense. They just didn't have playmakers. Fast forward to 2022 and give the defensive coaches a ton of credit. When you look at Havoc plays for 2022 and Havoc rate, Texas led the Big 12 in Havoc rate in 2022. Now, some different websites or some different entities may have a different definition of Havoc rate, so they may have their own numbers because some people had Texas second in some of the stats I looked at, but most of them had Texas leading the Big 12 in Havoc rate at around 18, a little over 18% Havoc rate, which is a really, really good number. And like I said, in 2021, they were 8th. And now you got them in the Big 12 leading or at least top 2 in the Big 12. And the number one defensive playmaker in the Big 12 who had the most Havoc plays was Jalen Ford. He led the Big 12 in Havoc plays. He had 19 of them total. That's over 1.5 per game. As a matter of fact, Texas had 3 of those players in the top 10. DeMarvion Overshown was number 9. Jahdae Barron was number 10. Both of those guys ended up with 15 Havoc plays between them. That's 1.2 per game. Deshaun Jameson actually snuck up on the list at 33. So you technically had 4 players in the top 33, and you had 0 such players in the top 33 in 2021. And like I said, Texas, their Havoc rate, 18.9%, which actually led the Big 12. And if you look at secondary and front 7 Havoc rates for Texas, and nationally and where they were ranked, they were 43rd nationally in Havoc rate. And their front 7 was 37th. And their secondary, their defensive backfield was 58th. So your front 7 was really good, actually. One of the better teams in the country at being able to create havoc. And we know that because Texas actually led, or at least one of the leaders, in pressures nationally. They were top 10 in pressures. Number 2, I believe, Pro Football Focus had them in pressures. And because of Jalen Ford and all the plays that he made, Texas had an opportunistic front 7 because he made a lot of plays from that linebacking core at that second level. Problem is with Texas, though, they need more of these types of players to make more of these plays. They only had 14 takeaways in all in 2022. And remember, when PK spoke to the media, he said they had 14 takeaways, but they had 21 what he called missed opportunities to make plays, which means I'm assuming that they had a chance to get an interception or recover a fumble that they did not. So this year, and 27 sacks this year, but 13 missed sacks is what PK counted and told the media last week when he spoke to them. So you had a chance to make more of these splash plays, and Texas just didn't. So as a team, you want to see more, but you had a huge leap, an exponential leap in improvement for Texas from 2021 to 2022 in playmaking ability. And hopefully that improves again with more familiarity in the system, adding more playmakers like Jalen Catalon, and bringing back playmakers like Jalen Ford.
Well, and, I know there's 11 guys on a football field on either side of the ball, but, one player can make a huge difference. I mean, think about what Micah Parsons brought to the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had good players on the Cowboys, and Micah Parsons, they added some other guys, and Dan Quinn was a part of it. But when they had Micah Parsons, the defense changed.
Yes,
it just changed. I mean, You can see it on offense too, with a game-breaking type player. And that really is, I mean, you can see the recipe for Sark and this staff and what they're trying to build with the continuity on the coaching staff. That continuity leads into the recruiting trail too, Rod, with the consistency on a player like Colin Simmons. But, big humans up front, speed on the outside, and then win the elite player.
Yep.
Because if you're good up front and you can win the line of scrimmage in the SEC, even in the SEC, and you've got great weapons on the outside, good quarterback play, and then you have some elite guys that separate games, that's the recipe. I mean, that's not that's not any trade secret there. But yeah, you got to have Havoc players that disrupt the game, change the game.
Disruptors. That's a great way of putting it.
And I think on offense, I would call them the guys that and you would be a part of this, Rod, in game planning. The defensive coordinators stay up late trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing with that dude?
The force multipliers, the guy who has so much gravity that defenders are attracted to him. Xavier Worthy has gravity. They call it gravity. You have to have defenders rotating around him constantly, and you want guys like that, force multipliers like that, because not only are they going to make everybody better, but they make the scheme easier. All right, they make the execute because it cleans it up for the quarterback. He knows, you're going to double X-Man? That means he's in one-on-one coverage. Those guys, they clean up the scheme and make the process, I think, easier for the quarterback too.
Well, and that's why it's not always on the quarterback. Think about go back to the Cowboys. Micah Parsons changed the defense. Remember the year that Dak Prescott was quarterback without any receiver help?
Oh,
and then they traded for Amari Cooper.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It changed.
Yeah.
It changed, right?
Yep. Different offense altogether.
Well, that wasn't just Amari. It was how the defense then had to play.
Exactly.
Because you only got 11 guys.
Look at the Eagles.
Yeah.
When they got A.J. Brown.
That's
changed
right.
everything. It's like, well, we got to play them different now. So I'm with you on the defense side of the ball. You do have Jalen Ford, Janae Barron. I think those are Havoc players. Hopefully Barron Sorrell becomes more of a Havoc player this year. He takes a leap. That would be the hope. Also in the secondary, Jalen Catalon is known for being a playmaker. So you added another guy as a playmaker too. Ryan Watts, that's not really his game. He's a guy that's kind of a shutdown guy, so I don't see him making a ton of plays on the ball. But I will say Jaron Thompson could make that leap this year. He's the elder statesman in the secondary. He's been in that scheme longer than anybody else. He's been starting in the secondary longer than anybody else. He's one of the best coverage safeties actually in the country, Pro Football Focus grade-wise, and we know now he can bring the hammer. He broke the hammer a few times last year in the box. So I think he could be one of those guys that ends up ascending to being a Havoc player, a Havoc playmaker on defense. You just need more of those because you lost two. You lost to Marvin O'Shawn and you lost to Sean Jameson too.
I'll give you a couple under the umbrella of if he's good enough, he's old enough. That would be Anthony Hill Jr. and Colton Vasek.
Yep.
And I mean, if having to block him every day, Christian Jones, the 6-year senior, called him Baby Boza. Now, fans are going to be like, well, you never blocked Boza, so you need to tap the brake.
Yeah. Slow down on that one there, brother.
But that would tell you that Colton Vasek, the freshman from Westlake, is at least getting noticed and making. And again, I'm not saying Colton Vasek is be on the field for a ton of snaps, but in important pass rushing situations,
I'm with you.
He and Anthony Hill could become a Havoc player.
Yep.
Because of their natural pass rush ability.
He's going to have a pass rushing package.
And I think of those guys. I think of those two players, and I think not only do you now have them, A&M and Oklahoma don't have Colton Vasek and Anthony Hill Jr. because you flipped their commitments. Those were two huge developments last year. Mm-hmm. And now you've gotten Colin Simmons over LSU as of yesterday. Good stuff right there in Rod's rant.